It's a very hard show to make because if you're making the scripted version, you've got a script and you know which characters to follow, and we don't. Putting it together and shooting it is a bit like a relay race.
My guest today is Stephen Lambert, founder of Studio Lambert, the production company behind shows like The Traitors, Gogglebox, and Squid Game, The Challenge.
An argument put out, and it gained traction. It said, one of the problems with television is that all the programmes are being made within the institutions. They're all made within the BBC. If you look at publishing, you don't have authors employed by publishers. They take the best talent for that moment, rather than having everybody on staff. The Thatcher government had come in and they were convinced. Everybody thought that this idea of independent television and Channel 4 would be one that she wouldn't like, but she did because she was sold on the entrepreneurial argument. It's the hardest thing in the world to sit there and kind of, with a piece of blank paper, let's just come up with something now that is going to be a design for a program that is a format that will repeat. There's sufficient variation so that people aren't watching the same thing over and over again, but they are watching something that is essentially repeating.
We're coming up to the conclusion of Celebrity Traitors. I mean, this has become a sort of national news story. So this is an amazing thing. What's going on here in your view? Why has this really captured our imagination? Welcome to All About Business with me, James Reed, the podcast that covers everything about business, management, and leadership. Every episode, I sit down with different guests who have bootstrapped companies, masterminded investment models, or built a business empire. They're leaders in their field, and they're here to give you top insights and actionable advice so that you can apply their ideas to your own career or business venture. Well, today on All About Business, I'm delighted to welcome Stephen Lambert to our studio. Stephen is the chief executive of Studio Lambert. Now, you might not have heard of Studio Lambert, but I'm sure you'll have heard of Studio Lambert's output. This is a big time of year because Stephen and his team produce the TV series Traitors, which is topping the polls. They also produce Gogglebox and Race Across the World, which is coming soon, Celebrity Race Across the World, and a lot of other shows, including Squid Game, The Challenge. So Traitors and Race Across the World are the top performing shows on the BBC, I believe, Stephen. And Squid Game, The Challenge was a top performing show on Netflix at one point. And you've recently returned from Los Angeles with an Emmy and been awarded an OBE by the King. So this has been a pretty busy period. And I'm really looking forward to talking to you about how all this came to pass and how you do it. But should we begin at the beginning, Stephen? I mean, you are the premier TV producer in Britain at the moment. But how did you start out and how did it begin?
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure to be here. Well, when I was at university, I thought I probably wanted to work in television, but I didn't really know how to get into television. So I was given a grant to start a PhD at Oxford at Nuffield College. And I thought, well, that's good. I'll write about television as my PhD subject. And when I was there, they said, oh, you should talk to this man, Anthony Smith. He had been at Oxford, but he was then running the British Film Institute. And I went to see Anthony and he said, oh, you're just the person we're looking for. We're looking for somebody to write a book about how Channel 4 came about. It's about to launch. It's going to launch in about 18 months. Could you write it quickly? And then it could come out on the day of the launch of the channel. This was in November 1982. And you might think, why would you write a book about a channel that hasn't started?
But I'm thinking that, Stephen. So go on. So what was going on?
Because really it was a history about the ideas of British broadcasting, British broadcasting policy. Because when radio began, the government at the time had an inquiry in the 20s, and they looked at American television, American radio, because it wasn't television at this point. Yeah. They looked at American radio and they said, oh, we don't want that. It's highly competitive. It seems very, very tacky. And so they said,
competitive and tacky, so un-British, you suggest.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they found this wonderful man, John Reith.
Right.
And they decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have the BBC. And the BBC would inform, entertain, and educate. In fact, the entertainment bit was always regarded as sort of an unfortunate necessity.
Right.
Even in the 60s.
That was at the tacky end.
That was a tacky end. Even in the 60s, light entertainment was referred to as ground bait. Oh. It would be something you'd scatter out there to get people to start watching or listening, and then they would
ground bait,
like when you go fishing.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, so that was the BBC, and then after the war, there was a whole campaign, because obviously television had launched just before the war, and then it started up again after the war. But it was just one television station on the BBC. And then there was a whole campaign, no, we need to have competition, and the Conservative governments in the 1950s bought into that idea, and they launched ITV. But at that point, if you wanted to have a good signal across the country, you could only have 2 channels. Then in the 60s, they had a sort of upgrade in the sort of technology, and they were able to have 4 channels. And everybody thought those 2 extra channels would be competitive to ITV and BBC, that there'd be more competition, because that was the sort of idea that had come into play in the 50s. But actually, again, things didn't work out that way. People argued, no, competition leads to a kind of chase to the bottom, and the BBC argued for a complementary channel, a channel that would do the opposite of what everybody else was doing. And they managed to get BBC Two as this complementary channel.
So when did that happen, BBC
That happened
Two?
in 1964.
Right.
David Attenborough was the first channel controller.
Really?
And then everybody thought, well, what about the 4th channel? And they didn't quite know what to do with the 4th channel. There was an idea that it would be a competitive channel to the others, but then people thought maybe not. And then in the end, the authority for independent television said, no, maybe it should be also complementary, so ITV should have it. And just as that was about to happen in the 70s, there was an argument put out, and it gained traction. It said, one of the problems with television is that all the programmes are being made within the institutions. Either they're all made within the BBC, or they're all made within ITV. It is a very funny idea. I mean, if you look at publishing, they argued, you don't have authors employed by publishers. Publishers are able to pick and choose, and they take the best talent for that moment, rather than having everybody on staff. And so the idea of independent television was, independent production was created. And this argument won the day eventually, so that by the early 80s, or in fact the late 70s, the Thatcher government had come in, and they were convinced. Everybody thought that this idea of independent television and Channel 4 would be one that she wouldn't like, but she did, because she was sold on the entrepreneurial argument. This would create small businesses that would thrive and would challenge the kind of sort of orthodoxy of everybody being employed by either the BBC or by ITV. And that's how independent television production came about. And the person who was running Channel 4 at the time, a man called Jeremy Isaacs, really championed that, because although the ITV companies made quite a few of the programmes for Channel 4 when it launched, he was determined that, no, the independents would play the biggest role. And it was so successful, and the independent production programmes were so well regarded, and the argument that this entrepreneurial sort of spirit should be encouraged, that a few years later the government required the BBC and ITV to take a minimum of 25% of their programmes from independent producers. And this really started to lead to the growth of independent production. And then it was dramatically accelerated in the early 2000s, when we all campaigned the government and said, look, it's great that we exist, but we've really only got these few buyers, ITV, BBC and Channel 4, and we're in a kind of serf-like relationship with them. They take all the rights. They don't give us much money to make the programmes. As a sector, we're not able to make much of a profit, and so nobody's actually investing in our sector. And there was a change to what's called the terms of trade. And these changes led to the fact that the independents would then keep the rights to their programs. They would be able to exploit them and sell the tape, the finished programs, or the formats to their shows around the world. And they would be able to maybe give some of that to the broadcaster, but the majority would stay with the independent producers. This transformed the bottom lines of independent production. It went from an average of like 2 or 3% to something closer to 10 or 12%. And it meant that money came into the sector, and the companies, the independent production companies, became much more muscular, and they were able to kind of back their own ideas and become a proper sector.
I mean, the difference between 2 or 3% and 10 and 12% is huge, obviously, and it's barely a viable business at 2 or 3%. So I can see. So your original research when you were preparing this book or PhD thesis sort of was exploring this opening up of the market. And
yes, it was.
So
you
had early sight of this in a way. You could see this coming.
I was because I was interested in how those ideas of kind of monopoly BBC from the 20s and 30s, how that had evolved into the point where this idea of encouraging entrepreneurial independent producers came about, and it was embodied with the launch of Channel 4. Obviously the book stopped at that point, but my interest in the subject continued.
Yeah, clearly. So your original research when you were preparing this book or PhD thesis sort of was exploring this opening up of the market. And
yes, it was.
So
you
had early sight of this in a way. You could see this coming.
I was because I was interested in how those ideas of kind of monopoly BBC from the 20s and 30s, how that had evolved into the point where this idea of encouraging entrepreneurial independent producers came about, and it was embodied with the launch of Channel 4. Obviously the book stopped at that point, but my interest in the subject continued.
Yeah, clearly. But you then worked at the BBC, didn't you, for quite a long period? Tell me about that a little bit, Stephen. What were you doing there?
After writing the book, I was able to use it as a way to get into the BBC, a slightly unusual way, because I joined the BBC Secretariat, which is the body that serves the Board of Governors and the Board of Management, as a kind of research assistant. But once you're inside the BBC, it's easier to move. And within 3 months, I got a move to the documentaries, the television documentaries department, where I stayed for the next 16 years. I mean, it was a very exciting place to be. I ended up becoming a producer-director of documentaries all around the world, often in war zones. And then eventually I became an executive in charge of commissioning programs, documentary programs, and sort of...
So many of our listeners will have seen some of these programs, I'm absolutely sure. I mean, just share 2 or 3, I mean, some of the most high-profile documentaries or stories that you brought to us.
Well, I was doing a mixture of things. I mean, as a filmmaker, I was often in sort of troubled areas making films about, I don't know, the Tamil Tigers. I was the only person to interview the Tamil Tiger leader in his hideaway in the jungles of northern Sri Lanka. I would make a film about, I don't know, British mercenaries who were working with the Croatian army during the breakup of Yugoslavia, or the South African police during the time that Mandela had just been released, and they were very worried about what was going to happen to them, the white South African policemen. But then, as an executive, I looked after the BBC Two's main documentary strand. It was called Modern Times. And I also did some of the first docu-soaps. We did a docu-soap called Clampers about parking wardens, and we did a
docu-soap, you call it. I like that expression.
Docu-soaps, yeah. Right, they're sort of half-hour, very popular BBC One documentary shows that sort of started in the sort of early 90s.
So this sounds like sort of early nascent, what became reality TV. Was that what you'd say? Is that what was happening?
I mean, the whole history of observational documentary and what people call reality TV is they're two things that sort of sit side by side and they feed off each other. I mean, they're essentially both interested in capturing natural dialogue, people talking to each other in present tense situations, rather than telling a story after the event. And reality television, or what we often now call unscripted, because it sort of captures everything. But reality television came about. But both of them sort of benefited enormously from the development of lightweight cameras, particularly the 16mm lightweight film camera and the separate sound recording. And it enabled you to be incredibly portable in a way that, for years one wasn't able to be. And reality television sort of properly started, I suppose, in America with The American Family. In the early 70s, and then on to the Real World, which was a big hit on MTV. They were very similar in many ways to what I'd call observational documentary, which is what we were doing in the documentaries department at the BBC, but perhaps with a stronger entertainment sort of imperative.
Right.
And I think
so the educating form was going more towards entertain.
Definitely.
Which is a journey that's continued.
And also
really.
Creating the situation. I think the big difference between... There's one kind of observational television where you're observing things that are happening that would be happening anyway.
Right.
And there is another one where you create a situation, which is great from a
I'm thinking of Ardross Castle at this point.
Ardross Castle. Or when I left the BBC after 16 years, I joined a relatively small independent production company called RDF Television or RDF Media, and suddenly realised we weren't going to be able to build a business unless we could create returning programmes, and because
what do you mean by returning programme?
Well, television is sort of made up of programs that are either they happen and that's it. They can be a single program. You watch that program that night, or they can be like a limited series that they will be 3 or 4, maybe even 6 episodes. But that's it. They're not conceived and they're not designed in such a way that the whole thing comes back again a year later, or even less than a year later.
So this was key in your mind for a business.
You can't run a business, or it's very hard to run a business. Some people do it, but it's very hard to run a business that is trying to turn itself into a real business just based on documentaries or non-returning programs. What you need to know is that you're creating a whole catalogue of programs that are coming back year after year, so that you know that your overheads are going to be covered largely by those returning programs, and all your energy is going into creating new programs so that you can grow and take on more overhead.
Build your portfolio.
And build your portfolio. So, What
was your first returning program?
It was a program called Faking It.
Faking It.
And it's probably the program I still love the most in many ways.
That's very famous.
It won the BAFTA 2 years in a row, and it was much loved. What was interesting about it, and it goes back to that point about explaining the difference between filming things that are happening anyway and filming things that you've created. And so in Faking It, it was actually my wife's idea. She said, I said, we need some ideas for formats. And she said, why don't you do Pygmalion for real? And that was it. That was all she said. I had to work out how to interpret that.
That's good. I like that.
And then I had to persuade Channel 4 to commission it, which they did as a one-off, as a pilot, but with the intention that if it worked, we'd make more of them. And it was essentially an idea where somebody would be taken from one walk of life and they would be trained over a month. They would live with a mentor. That was amazing. I can't believe these people would actually let these people come and live in their homes. So the relationship,
live with the real deal.
They would live with the real deal. So the first one that was, we did actually do one where a shop assistant had to fake it as a high society kind of lady.
A real Pygmalion.
A real Pygmalion. That was okay. It really took off when we did the second one, and we took a quite a slightly delicate Oxford undergraduate, I can't remember which one he was now, and he had to fake it as a bouncer. And
I'm already wishing I'd seen that.
It's a great program. It's called.
Can you find it on YouTube still?
You can find it on Channel 4. All the Faking It episodes are on their on their whatever it's called on their iPlayer. It's not their iPlayer. It's their Channel 4 player.
Yeah.
That episode was called Alex the Animal.
Right. Okay. Well, that's one to look up, everyone.
And he had to learn how to fake it as a bouncer.
Yeah.
And what they would then do, they would have to then take part in a competition at the end where they would be competing against experienced practitioners in whatever it was that they were doing. Real bouncers in that case. And there would be a panel of judges who would be asked to judge between them. And they would pick whoever they thought was the best bouncer or best. We had a burger flipper who had to become a top chef.
Right.
Or, there were so many. Then at the end, we would say to the judges, oh, by the way, if we asked you and told you rather that one of the people that taking part in that competition only learnt to do this skill 4 weeks ago, would you be surprised? And they go, yeah, I can't believe anybody could do that. And could you spot that person? And very often they couldn't. Yeah. And that was success.
So this is inspiring for anyone who wants to learn a new skill in life or, transferable skills in work and all sorts of applications.
Absolutely. And
so it's entertaining and inspiring, actually.
Exactly. And that's why the program was so loved, because it showed you at its very purest the kind of teacher-pupil relationship. And because they had lived together, and because we would get the mentor to be watching a live feed of the competition, and they would be so wrapped up. I mean, we had a punk rocker who had to conduct the London Philharmonic. And he couldn't read music at the beginning of the 4 weeks.
And did this succeed?
He succeeded.
That's so good to know. Yeah.
Because really it was about nothing. Who cares whether they faked it? But the mentor didn't want to let down the pupil, the faker, and the faker didn't want to let down the mentor, and they really cared about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was a huge success. So when you started Studio Lambert, I think, in 2008, what was your first Studio Lambert project?
Our first Studio Lambert project was a documentary about something to do with Michael Jackson, and we got sued. And I thought we were about to.
Oh, so that didn't go so well.
I thought we were going to.
Well, this is a good story, because obviously I started
on the steps of the
this.
High Court,
really?
and we thought, this is going to be the end of the world. And then suddenly, one of our hard-working legal team found a piece of paper that completely destroyed the other person's case.
So you were on the cusp. So this is interesting, because I obviously introduced you with all the successes you're currently sort of producing, but you had a moment where you nearly lost you thought the business you'd only just started.
Yes, and this was a business we'd launched in 2008, which you probably remember, was also the height of the financial crash.
Yes, I carry the scars, Stephen. I certainly remember. Yeah.
So it wasn't a great time to be launching a business, and then to have this problem with our first show. But then we got a commission for a program called Undercover Boss. Which
I remember. I loved that program.
Well, Channel 4 ordered it. They ordered 3. We thought, oh my God, thank God, we've got
3 episodes.
3 episodes. A trial, 3 episodes. It was so hard to find any company that would play ball. And in fact, we found 2, and then the third one we were about to start filming, and they went bust.
Right.
And so we only actually made 2 of them in that first series. But, and this was the crucial bit, from those 2 episodes we made for Channel 4, which did all right.
So what were they? What were the stories?
One was a holiday company.
Right.
The boss of a holiday kind of, sort of quite low rent holiday company, and the other was a boss of a steelworks and going into, and
they went in undercover, so people
they went
didn't know
in
who
undercover,
they were. Yeah.
and they went in to do the job of a new entrant, and they would be learning what was really going on in the company. There had been a program on the BBC called Back to the Floor, which was somewhat similar, but in that case, the boss was known as the boss. Our big sort of twist was that our boss was unknown, and almost invariably the people never spotted who the boss was. Occasionally that happened, and then we'd make it part of the story. Anyway, what made it special? What transformed our business was that we were able to cut what we called a sizzle reel, which is a piece of tape you use to sell an idea.
Sizzle reel.
A sizzle reel. It sizzles away out of the 2 British episodes that we'd made.
Yeah.
We went to Los Angeles, where we'd started up our LA office at the same time as launching in London, which was quite ambitious for a new company, and we were able to pitch it to the absolute top person at CBS, who loved it so much that she bought the show in the room to make an American version.
Right.
We made the American version. They ordered a full series.
So was it easier to find companies in America?
It was still quite hard. It was still very hard, the first one. It's always the first one that's so damn hard.
Yeah, because no one knows what the format is.
Exactly. Yeah. But there was a lovely man called Larry O'Donnell, and his wife persuaded him. Her name was Dare, and she dared him to do it. Yeah. And Larry O'Donnell was the chief operating officer of Waste Management, which is a huge American company. And it was a great one for us because he was having to work the bins and do all kinds of deal with garbage. And the show was then tested by CBS. They have a big testing facility in Las Vegas. And 2,000 people watch all their pilots and decide what to go forward with and what to do, what will be the next hit. It rated so well in the testing that the people back at CBS said, that can't be right. Test it again. And they tested it again. It came back even stronger. At which point, they made the decision to launch Undercover Boss in the most coveted slot on American television, which is the slot immediately after the Super Bowl. Wow. Immediately after the Super Bowl, the audience is 100 million viewers. Now, so your new production company suddenly found itself with with this amazing slot. Yeah.
But this is the power of good ideas.
Exactly.
Well executed. I mean, this is what's happened. Obviously, it was a great...
No, it was great. Yeah. But it was still incredibly exciting. And also, when you're launching a show after the Super Bowl, you're worried about 2 things. One, you don't want the game to be a kind of walk away so that everybody loses interest and stops watching. But you don't want to be so close that it goes into extra time, because then your show's not going to start until 11 or 11:30 at night. This one, fortunately, was exciting, but it was finished on time, and we inherited this enormous audience. Some of the audience obviously there's an after the game kind of discussion show for 20 minutes. But basically we inherited 40 million viewers and held them for the next hour, making it the most popular post-Super Bowl show that there had been for years and years and years, and probably ever since then. And it meant Undercover Boss was this huge hit that we then made many, many episodes of and gave sort of life to our company.
It'd be harder to do now, I think, because people know what their bosses look like because of social media and stuff.
I
Is that
think
right?
That's true. Yeah. I think that's true. We were very good at coming up with reasons for... Yeah. I mean, we would disguise the bosses, and we would trick people into thinking we might have 2 people there. We were filming. Yeah. We were quite good at making it hard for people to realize. But you're right. I think social media would make it probably harder.
So that's fantastic. So that's how you began. So fast forward, you've done Gogglebox. Where did that idea come from? Was that
the thing happened in 2000, in the early 2000s. No, so in 2000, and after a few years, a colleague of mine, who's now my partner and chief creative officer, Tim Harcourt, joined. And at that point, he was our head of development, and he had the initial idea for Gogglebox. And we went together to pitch it to Channel 4, along with a whole lot of other ideas. This was our last idea at the end that was almost throwaway. But fortunately, because we thought, a crazy idea.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, how did you sell that to someone? Watching television.
We said, it's a great...
It's sort of interesting.
What we had realised was that television watching was an unusually intimate situation. The people that you sit and watch television with are people that you tend to be very close to. And actually it's quite an intimate
So that was another insight, actually.
And it was. And also, we weren't quite sure when we first sold it, and then we were given some money to make a little sort of test tape of 10 minutes or so. We weren't quite sure whether this was a kind of a show about these people's lives or whether it was a TV review show.
Right.
But it was, as we filmed it and then started playing with it in the cutting room, we were, no, we've got to sell this as a TV review show. If you don't sell it as a TV review show, people are confused. But you'll learn about these people slowly. And if you pick the right people, they will be entertaining. They will reflect the kind of diversity of Britain. Yeah. And people will eventually kind of,
it's also quite fun seeing how people react to stuff and how different that can be.
How different, but also how similar it is. Yeah. And that's very interesting. I mean, the hardest thing about Gogglebox, and I thought we probably wouldn't pull it off, is that it's to a large extent a comedy, and comedy is all about brilliant editing and comic timing, which you achieve in the cutting room. But you've got no time to edit Gogglebox because it has to be filmed and edited within the week. Right. So, we start filming Gogglebox on a Friday. Right. We're filming on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Tuesday's about the end of our filming period. We're starting to edit from the Monday of that week. Right. So stuff is coming. By Wednesday, we've got to have Wednesday night. It's got to be getting close to a cut. Thursday, we show it to the channel. Yep. Then Friday morning, we're locking it all up. Stressful. And then you're on air on Friday, and then by then you're already filming the next one. Yeah.
So you've got to have really good editors.
You have to have amazing editors. You have to have a brilliant team. And fortunately, we did.
You've developed that. Yeah.
And now they're so well versed in all this that it isn't stressful, or at least it's not crazily stressful. And the team are, it
has a rhythm.
It has a real rhythm, and they enjoy making it.
So forward to today, I mean, we're coming up to the conclusion of Celebrity Traitors. I mean, this has become a sort of national news story. It's in the newspapers. You've been on Newsnight talking about it.
Front page of the Sun today.
Yeah, front page of the Sun. I was standing in a queue for Ryanair and people were talking about it.
Not a little thing on the front page. It's the whole front page.
Yeah, so this is an amazing thing. What's going on here in your view? Why has this really captured our imagination?
It's a damn good game.
Yes.
Very well executed, with an unusually good celebrity cast. A cast of the kind that you would never normally see in a celebrity reality show. So
as a producer, you pulled that together.
Well, the cast
what was key to getting the cast? How did you do that?
The key to getting the cast was the strength of the civilian versions. Everybody,
you call them civilians and celebrities.
We do.
That's language a bit like some of it sizzles and ground bait. That's another phrase. Yeah. So the civilian versions were very successful.
The civilian versions were successful and very much liked by people, particularly or relevantly. The celebrities
themselves
and everybody who took part in Celebrity Traitors were all fans of the show, and they weren't doing it for the money. I mean, they're paid, but it's compared to how much people are paid, say on other shows like I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. They're paid much less.
And the prize is for charity, isn't it?
And the prize is for charity, but it's. So the real question, I suppose, is why did they all like the show so much? And that goes back to what's interesting about the program. I suppose what's interesting about it is it turns out it's fascinating watching people lie and being given a license to lie. I think one of the sort of great qualities about Traitors is that in many reality shows, people end up sort of betraying others, and that betrayal or sort of deceit is sort of revealing of their character, and it can sort of leave a bad taste to the viewer. They think, oh, what awful people. Here, people are given license to lie, much as you're given license to lie in a poker game. Yep. So that if you win as a traitor, people congratulate you because you've played a good game. They don't say, oh, you mean you lied throughout? No, they say, well done, you played the game. You played
apparently Paloma Faith's not very happy.
No, well, maybe there are some exceptions.
Well, maybe that's a good story. I don't know, but yeah.
So I think I think the fact that, one of the classic things of Greek drama is dramatic irony, where you, the viewer, know more than the participants.
Oh, so that goes right back to Greek drama, does it?
Oh, I definitely think so.
I love that, because we know who the traitors are, obviously.
We know who the traitors are.
And
I think dramatic irony is actually key to a lot of programs that we've done. I mean, Undercover Boss is dramatic irony. Faking It was dramatic irony.
Yeah, of course, that's the connecting theme in a way. Right back to Greek.
Right so back to the Greeks. They had all the secrets.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we, the viewers, know who the traitors are, and we can't quite believe that the faithful can't spot it. And it makes
how dogmatic they can be and wrong is so interesting as well. Yeah.
And then that becomes so interesting to watch the way a group comes to a conclusion, the way... I mean, it does make you question the whole jury system.
Well, lots of things, running a company boards, anything, how a group becomes so certain about something that can be so wrong.
And also how they seize on evidence to support their theories. That, I mean, the point about traitors is that the traitors do start doing things that is real evidence. And the skill then of the faithful is to spot it, to recognize how significant it is, and to persuade the other faithfuls that this is real evidence. Yeah. But at the beginning of the show, there's no evidence.
No.
And so it does, it's such an, it turns out that that's very entertaining, watching people create theories. I suppose it's a sort of, it's just like it would be fascinating and to watch how a jury works.
Yeah. Well, 12 Angry Men is a very famous film. So I'm thinking about this. The current show, it hasn't gone unnoticed, especially from colleagues of mine who've watched all of your Traitors series, that the celebrity traitors took quite a lot longer to spot the traitor than the civilian.
That's just because I think the celebrities are very good at being traitors.
Well, you've certainly had some good ones. That I would agree. They were very skilled in this. So the celebrities are better traitors.
Well, when people get frustrated with the faithful and think, oh, they're not very good faithful, well, the counter argument is they're very good traitors.
yeah, and I think Kat and Alan
are very good traitors.
Who are still in.
They're exceptionally good.
Are exceptionally good. So we'll wait with great interest to see how this works out. And then you've also got coming out at the same time that Traitors concludes your new Celebrity Race Across the World series. So what's made that's another huge hit? Why is that dramatic irony again, or is that something else?
Definitely not dramatic irony.
Definitely not.
we all know what's going on. I mean, we know as much as they do. Well, I think it speaks to people's love for travel, or sort of authentic travel. But I think the key thing about that show is that, it's a show about a journey in the relationship of the people that are the pairs that are taking part in the competition, as well as a physical journey. And I think the way in which the team who make it skillfully tell that story of how the relationship between father and son, or two friends, or husband and wife, how both the backstory, but also how it changes in the present tense as they go on the journey.
Yeah. And we imagine how we would be.
And and you see the world in a way that feels sort of unfiltered. And I think also people are so touched by how generous strangers are, and the kind of the small things, or sometimes the big things that people do to help each other. So it's a very heartwarming and uplifting show that has just the right amount of kind of tension and excitement as they compete to get to the next checkpoint. They have all kinds of mishaps and problems getting to those checkpoints that they have to overcome. It's just a great, authentic journey show that has lots of journeys going on, in addition to the obvious physical journey.
An odyssey. We go back to the Greeks. Yeah. So that's another classic structure, I guess. So you've got a great advertising campaign coming out to support these two shows you just mentioned to me before we started. What's it called, Stephen?
Oh, well, I don't know. The strap line for it is run, lie, enjoy. So you run in Race Across the World. You have to lie in Celebrity Traitors, and hopefully together the two are shows that you will enjoy. It's just unusual because Celebrity Race Across the World is launching at 8 o'clock on Thursday on BBC One, and straight after it at 9 o'clock, Celebrity Traitors comes to an end. It's the final episode. So
on Thursday, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be run, lie, enjoy. That's what I'm going to be doing. And I think a few other people listening to this might be doing the same thing.
Oh, yeah, we're expecting a very big audience for the final of The Traitors. I'm sure there'll be a very big audience for the launch of Celebrity Race Across the World.
So a huge night for you and your team on television. Well, congratulations. I mean, I was thinking about this coming here. I mean, you have entertained millions of people over more decades now. And not many people can say that. And I think it's fantastic what you do. And I'm so pleased that these series are such big hits because they deserve to be. The one that sort of I found a little surprising was the Squid Game, the challenge. Because, I mean, I watched Squid Game and I thought it was the most violent show I've ever seen. But you managed to turn that into a sort of successful, unscripted format. What made you do that? And how does that work?
Well, we were asked to do it by Netflix.
Right.
They had the idea of wanting to...
Oh, so they came to you with this idea?
They said, because Squid Game, the drama, is their most successful show. It's got the...
Of all time.
Of all time, ever since Netflix has started. It's had a bigger audience than any other show.
It tells us a lot about human beings.
Well, and they didn't expect it to be that big. I mean, they thought it was going to be huge in Korea.
Yeah.
But it just went everywhere.
It was an extraordinary show, though. It was
very unusual show. Yeah. And unusually, it was a drama about a competition. And the man who is in charge of unscripted television at Netflix managed to persuade his colleagues that, well, look, our biggest show is a drama about a competition. Why don't we do the competition for real?
With a few sort of changes.
With a few changes. I mean, initially,
no one gets killed.
We wondered whether it was possible to kill people, but our lawyer said, no, it's going to be really tricky if you do that.
Yeah, right. So a few important changes.
I mean, I think people were fascinated by that world. There's a huge fan base that we loved the drama, and they were interested and wanted to see what a real version was like. Because again, like a lot of these shows, like when we were talking about Race Across the World, people are thinking, what would it be like if I was doing it? Yes. And again, I think with Squid Game, it was always, what would it be like if I was in that situation? And the show enables you to see what it would be like in a way that I think people find compelling. Obviously,
and it's a huge financial prize as well.
That was the kind of unscripted. That was the kind of obviously we're not going to kill people. So what do you do that somehow gives the same sense of, oh God, this is terrible, I've been eliminated? Well, I think the size of the prize was crucial to that. It meant that everybody, you don't die, but your dreams die when you get eliminated.
That's somehow worse, isn't it? 4.56 million is not going to be yours, Stephen. You're out.
It's not.
Yeah, okay.
And only one person is going to get it.
One person gets it.
And that's, it's a very hard show to make because if you're making the scripted version, you've got a script. And those are pretty useful things. That means you know who's going to win. And you know which characters to follow because they're the ones who are going to get
you don't.
And we don't. And so we're having to, putting it together and shooting it is a bit like a relay race. You're sort of, you build a baton and you're following somebody that you get interested in, and then they get eliminated. By that point, the baton has been passed to somebody else.
Right.
And so as you get closer towards the end, the characters that will take you to the end have started to emerge, both in the filming but also in the edit. Because it's not like we can just there's so many people. There are so many people that
450 something.
456.
Yeah.
That we can't film them all. So it's not like we can go back and go, oh, well, we know who's going to win. Let's get all the footage of what they were doing at the beginning. We just don't have it. We don't, and if we do it, there'll be brief shots. They won't be interesting stuff that will make us kind of build them up as characters.
So that's in production terms, a complicated task.
Very complicated.
Yeah. So I'm interested. A couple of things just before we put Traitors to bed. Keeping it confidential. I mean, you know who's won. You're sitting opposite. I'm not going to ask you, obviously, but how do you make sure that doesn't leak out? I mean, that's a huge thing because we're all on sort of tenterhooks. Do you get them to sign some? I mean, how do you make sure that happens? Because it would obviously spoil it.
Yes, I mean, everybody has contracts that say you can't talk about the show, whether they're celebrities or civilians.
Yeah.
Some of them are better than others at reading their contracts and sticking to them.
Yeah.
But fortunately, when it comes to the press, they don't want to ruin it for.
So they might have heard a rumor, but they're not going to publish anything.
Yeah. There's always a danger that people will say something if they think they've heard something on social media, but a rumor on social media isn't very definitive. So it doesn't look that different to just somebody saying, well, I think they're going to win.
So you do need the sort of goodwill of the press.
You do need the goodwill of the press, but
they don't want to spoil it for everyone.
They don't want to spoil it for everyone. It is also, people watch Hamlet over and over again. I mean, in the end of the day, I don't necessarily know that if you did know who was going to win, it would be the end of the world. You're still fascinated to know how that came about. How the winners were able to win. You don't need to actually have that as a secret. All stories, what you want to know is sort of how did it come about, rather than actually what the final result was. But I mean, we put an awful lot of effort into keeping it secret, and
just a sort of production question: how long is everyone in the castle for? Because aren't they sort of cut off from the outside world and they go and film there?
They're cut off from the outside. Well, no, each episode is shot in a day.
Okay.
I mean, the first episode tends to get shot in more than a day because they arrive and then there's a whole lot of press stuff you've got to do.
How long would they typically be there? 2 weeks or?
Well, if they get murdered or banished early on, they're not there for very long at all.
No, okay.
But
so
if you're there to the end, then the shows tend to be like, well, the celebrity one's 9 episodes, the civilian one is 12 episodes. So you're there for 9 days plus a few extra days.
Yeah.
Plus you arrive, to get acclimatized. I mean, so it's about 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's sort of intense engagement.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is very intense. I mean,
you can tell. I mean, looking at it.
I think crucially with all these shows, it's the same with Squid Game. You create a world where we try not to be in there with them as much as possible. I mean, like
you as the production team.
We, the production team. Yeah. They're in there. The camera coverage is such that they just get on with it. I mean, they get dropped off. They kind of know. That's another reason why it's very important that you do the whole episode in a day, because they're sort of picking up the rhythm of the show. They know, and they get dropped off. They go to breakfast. They know what to do. I mean, Claudia comes in and tells them a little bit. They know when the clocks strike, it's time to go home. I mean, you don't need somebody to keep telling them what to do. And we don't ever tell them, go and do this, or why don't you go and say that? Or
so it has its own energy. And
it has its own energy, because the most important thing is it's authentic.
So there's no direction going on?
No. I mean, we're trying to work out what we think might happen. We're all the time anticipating, but that's not the same thing as trying to tell them telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And also remember, it's a competition. I mean, particularly with the civilian versions, people are winning quite a lot of money. And so with any competition, there are very strict rules. I mean, with Squid Game, the challenge, the amount of money is enormous. So the rules are equally very, very strict. You can't interfere in any way as a producer in a...
No, you can't have a favoured, faithful or anything like that.
No.
Stephen Fry gets it, he gets it, I suppose.
Indeed.
Indeed. So looking forward... I mean, I meet lots of young people who say they want to work in TV or they want to go into film. And it isn't obvious how someone might do that. And I bet you get a lot of people coming to you. But if someone was interested in this space, I mean, you went into it through an unusual route. You said doing a PhD about Channel 4. And often unusual routes are the best. But what should a young person who's interested in this space, because it is a huge industry now, and something that Britain clearly excels at, thanks to you and others, what should a young person be thinking about or trying to sort of learn, or what experience might they usefully get to start that journey, Stephen?
The obvious one is watch television. It's amazing
television.
how many people
really is it that obvious? They come to you and they haven't watched it.
When you start asking them about television programs, and they haven't watched a lot of things. Try and watch television, not just television today, but there's so much historical, interesting television, whether it's dramas or reality shows or whatever, that give you a historical perspective of where television has come from. To develop your critical faculties, watch television and start thinking about why do I like this program? What's making it work? Or why don't I like this program? And what's making it not work for me? How would I change this program that's not working for me to make it better? Learn how to talk about television so that you're discussing it as a medium through which, if you're interested in working in it, you understand what are its constituent parts and which bits. Well, all bits are crucial to making it work, but why did they get it wrong? I mean, with scripted programs, it's amazing because so much energy goes into the script, and yet sometimes you watch things and you think, why on earth did this ever get ordered? Because the script was terrible. But obviously somebody thought it was good, and why would they have thought it was good? And also, what is a particular program trying to do? Obviously every programs are doing different kinds of things, not just in terms of what they're about, but also what they're doing in a schedule, because the television is still largely still commissioned for a linear schedule, even though so much is watched on streaming platforms. But even on a streaming platform, even on Netflix, you've got to think about, well, what are they actually doing? How they're spending their money? What percentage of their money are they spending on kind of low-cost programs? And what kind of programs are they buying that probably don't cost that much? Why are they deciding to spend a lot of money on those big ones? Just read about television, watch television, learn to talk about it.
Immerse yourself.
That's what I mean. That's the number one thing. Yeah. The number two thing is, it's hard. There's so many people want to work in
That's
television.
What I'm seeing, yeah.
So, but it's equally much easier today to make something and to put it up on YouTube or to put it elsewhere. On Instagram or whatever.
What's it called? A sizzle tape.
Well, a sizzle
Make your
tape.
own sizzle tape.
Make your own sizzle tape of your skills.
I was thinking about your CBS experience.
Indeed.
Yeah,
I know.
That's what you did.
I understand. Yes. Yeah. But you don't have to just make a sizzle tape. You can make a little. Come up with something that if you a comedy of some kind, going into people can do amazing things with very little these days.
Their phones.
And they can show with phones, and they can show their creative sensibility and skills.
This is so exciting in a way, because you can do this with nothing really.
Yes,
you can start from.
Of course.
There are no barriers to entry.
No.
You don't have to have huge amounts of capital.
No. If you're interested in television, want to make television, think about two people that you know who you think are very funny, and just arrange for them to talk to each other and film it and edit it, because it's also not very difficult to edit, and put it up on YouTube and say, look, and then you can show people stuff that you're doing. Then.
So immerse yourself and get started in some way.
In some way. And then the hardest bit of all is sort of latch on to somebody who's a mentor. Most people in television have at some point early in their career, they've found somebody that they've managed to build a relationship with, so that that person sort of helps them get going and sort of helps them get in the door or gets the break.
Encouragement or some introductions.
Yes.
But
none of that's easy.
No. But it's all eminently possible.
It's all eminently possible if you're really driven. Yeah, I'm often surprised at people's lack of interest in kind of really understanding what television is and where it's come from. And I think if you...
Which is where we began our conversation.
It is.
Yeah. So you think so understanding that is critical,
Well,
really,
I think
you think?
It's,
Well, you've helped explain it, actually, in this conversation for anyone listening. They've got to start
you
already.
need to know where we've come from and what's been done. And also I mean...
Can I ask you, you mentioned the importance of watching television. Are there unscripted shows not made by you that you think that you really like?
Oh, well, all the hits that we don't make, I wish we would have made.
So which ones are you thinking of? I'm just interested.
Well, I mean, Bake Off is a huge hit.
Bake Off, yeah.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah.
In America, Survivor.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm very... It's really hard to make a popular, successful program.
I bet.
Because I'm often amazed, because when I was a documentary maker at the BBC, there was always a kind of, oh, well, we make the real stuff. We're telling the people
the
about
documentary
the
team.
documentary. We're
Yeah.
telling people about how the world is. We're not making kind of sort of entertainment stuff.
But this is psychology we've been talking about, though.
But exactly. And the idea that, oh, well, you can just default to popular, easy stuff. It's the hardest thing in the world to come up with something that it's much harder, in my mind or in my experience, to sit around with clever colleagues and try and design a new popular, returning, entertaining program than it is to say, go and make a documentary about, I don't know, anything.
Policemen in South Africa.
Policemen in South Africa. Because essentially, if I want to make a program about policemen in South Africa, okay, well, I got to find some charming way of persuading the people who are the gatekeepers to let us in.
Right.
And there are all kind of techniques for how you do that, but they're essentially practitioner skills. I mean, there's skills about how to persuade people, how to be around, how to win people's trust, how you start filming, what kinds of things you film that will make a bit of narrative for you, how you then put all that together in a cutting room. All that is skills that you kind of start to learn as you're in television. You get better and better at it. But that's an easier process, I still think, than to sit there and kind of, with a piece of blank paper, let's just come up with something now that is going to be a design for a program that is a format that will repeat, that there's sufficient variation so that people aren't watching the same thing over and over again, but they are watching something that is essentially repeating. I mean, each season of Traitors, the same format is happening.
Yeah.
It's just that it's designed in such a way that there's sufficient variation because of the change of the cast and because of the way the game plays out. So that is a very...
So how do you do that? That's
challenging.
I can see that. That's a hard thing to do.
Much harder,
creative
I
process.
think, than the practical skills of actually making, say, a documentary.
Talk me through that a bit then. So you have a group of people. How many of you would sit around with this blank piece of paper? And how do you sort of, I don't like the word, ideate or create some new format? I mean, you've obviously done it a number of times.
I've done it a lot. I mean, these days... my younger colleagues do most of it.
Yeah.
I tend to get more involved as we get to the point where an idea is sort of at the point where we're trying to sell it to the buyers. And
so where people have stump up the money.
Where you've got, I mean, the hardest thing in television, I think, is persuading somebody to give you the money to make a television program.
So how much money are we talking about, just so people understand?
Well, I mean, television programs used to be in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, the kind of programs that we make now, they can be over $1 million an episode. And I mean, in the case of something like Squid Game, The Challenge, it's more than, I mean, it's millions as opposed to an episode rather than.
Right.
So it's.
So someone's writing you a big check at this point.
They're writing you a big check
to buy this output.
We made a decision, my partner Tim and I, a few years ago, to just concentrate on big shows, because we had the view that, of thinking about it from the buyer's point of view, the buyers are going to lose their jobs if they buy very expensive shows and they don't work. And so they're taking a huge risk. And yet they know that in order to kind of stand out, by and large, they need to take these big risks, because those big shows are the shows that are the ones that are going to
get on the front page of the Sun.
Get on the front page of the Sun.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to be a buyer buying big shows, you're only going to buy from people that you know can actually deliver and are not going to screw up. So even if you've got a good idea for a big show, if you don't know how to make it, or if you haven't got the track record that says you can make it, then you're very unlikely to actually get that bought.
Right.
And so
you need the combination.
Once you can get into that club, once you're in that club of we make big shows and we can deliver and they're good, it's surprisingly not as crowded a club as other parts of television.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's some barriers to entry there. So that makes it a good business, though. I mean,
that does make it a good business. If you're concentrating on big shows, then there's less competition, and it's also, the rewards are greater.
So I'm thinking about the business Studio Lambert. You've become part of all three media, so they acquired your business, is that right? And just to talk me through that, because you've got quite an interesting business model, as I understand.
Well, I'm constrained from saying too much about a business model, but
fair enough.
We talked earlier on about how independent television developed, and how in the early 2000s the independent sector finally got a better deal with the support of government, and as a result, for the first time, money did start to come into the sector, outside money, and as a result there's been quite a consolidation process, and so a lot of independent production companies have been bought and become part of big groups, and those groups are able to kind of avoid the sort of problem of being too small, and so you kind of feast and famine. If you're large enough, then you've got enough of these returning programs, and when something drops away, you've got something else coming through, and it's on a scale. Also, it enables you to have if television is either sold to buyers who take all the rights, like Netflix, or they're sold to people like the BBC or NBC in America, who just take the rights to their particular territories. That second group of buyers are much better from an independence point of view, because you then get the right to sell the program and the finished program and the format all around the world.
Right.
And if you're part of a big group, the distribution company will then be a very effective seller of your tape and your formats to all the territories.
So that's why,
and that's how the sector benefits. How you retain talent is difficult, and we've come up with quite ingenious deals that have enabled us to incentivize everybody in our company, or not everybody, but all the key people, to keep staying, and to do deals where there are rewards over time that are dependent on how well we're doing, and they as well as the culture of the company have been the key things in terms of making us successful.
Right. So just sort of looking ahead a little bit, as we come towards the end of the conversation, what excites you most about the future of Unscripted? It's obviously a world in which you're leading, but what's next in this space?
Well, the new big thing. I don't know that there's a theme of what's going to excite me. We are trying to take a lesson from Squid Game and seeing other big existing IP, and how we can turn something that already exists as either as a game or as a big drama series, and turn that into a big unscripted show. We're obviously coming up with new ideas ourselves, and we're looking for opportunities that to partner with the right people, or to take something, where somebody comes to you with an idea for.
So you're open to ideas from the right places.
We're open to ideas that tend to come to us from a buyer rather than from sort of individuals. I mean, in other words, if a broadcaster like Netflix came to us and talked about wanting us to do an unscripted version of Squid Game, that kind of thing, rather than... Because, I mean, we employ a lot of people. We employ a very talented development team to create our own ideas. So every time we take an idea from, or if we ever took an idea from outside of our own group, our own in-house people, there's an opportunity cost, and it's complicated. It's a dilution. So we tend not to do that. But obviously, if a broadcaster comes to us or a streamer comes to us with something and says, do you want to make this into a show, then that's quite exciting, and you know that then often it will happen.
Yeah, well, as it did with Squid Game, the challenge. Lastly, Stephen, is there anything you wish you'd known at the beginning of your career that you know now that you could have told your younger self?
Buy Apple.
Buy Apple. Yeah, I wish I'd known that as well. That's a very good answer. I don't know what the equivalent is for the future, but there must be something out there for anyone to keep an eye on.
I don't know. Gosh. I listened back to a tape of an interview I did when I wrote my book in 1982, and I realized I was so wrapped up in the subject matter that I was describing the trees and I couldn't actually describe the wood. And I think to be able to tell people when they're young, immerse yourself in knowledge about whatever it is that you're interested in, but then also be able to try to step back and talk about it in a way as if you're explaining it to your slightly deaf aunt, rather than thinking that I need to explain all this complexity and detail, is something that would have been useful for me to have appreciated quicker.
Why do you say that? It's an interesting answer.
Well, I just think as a younger person, I was very interested in the detail of things, and that I would often, if been asked about it, would want to explain it in too much complexity. I mean, I think even in this conversation, well, I just think that people get bored unless you tell it in a very good way, or also that it if you're trying to communicate, whether in almost any situation, you have to be able to work out what is the actual pithy, important bits, and being able to develop your skill. It's no good thinking you know what the pithy, important bits are if you don't actually know the subject. But then if you know the subject in great detail, don't think you've got to explain all that detail.
And make sure you know what the pithy, important bits are.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a communication skill,
yes,
isn't
it is.
So getting your message across. Or if you've got 5 minutes with someone, what's the one thing you want them to know about you when they leave? Absolutely. And that's sort of sales skill as well, I suppose. It is sales skill. And then I think that one's sales skills I learnt my sales skill from talking people into taking part in documentaries. Right. And interviewing people in documentaries. I mean, that you're listening all the time, and you're trying to. I think the best salespeople are listening as much as they're pitching. They're picking up all the signals of what the buyer, the listener is reacting to what you're saying, and you're responding to those, but in a way that isn't like over responsive. Well, I remember going on a sales course years ago, and I was just told you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So that was quite a helpful, pithy summary of that, what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. And what's interesting, you've been describing these wonderful programs and the psychology behind them, the importance of ideas, but you've still got to do sales. And every business, whatever activity it is we're in, involves sales. That's what I mostly do these days. Is my main energy goes into getting things across the line. Because some young people I meet say, I don't want to do sales, or I'm worried about doing sales, I don't want to pick up the phone. But everyone has to do that. You're the top of the tree in terms of television production. That's your main activity, you just said. Yeah. And it's true for what I do. And I mean, you might be a top lawyer. It's true for what they do, or people in business. So I think those skills, what you just said, is very illuminating. To learn how to do that early on will help anyone in any activity. Absolutely. When I was trying to persuade people to take part in documentaries, particularly if they had views like South African policemen who I wouldn't necessarily chair,
you want them to feel that they are persuading you of their point of view. That doesn't mean you should go straight into going, oh, I completely agree with you. But if you kind of acknowledge their worldview and sort of, oh, I see, what you're saying is this, then people feel so much more comfortable and relaxed about the fact that they think they've won you over. And that's how you form a relationship of trust in many cases, because you're sort of...
Well, you're being respectful.
You're being respectful, and you're repeating back your understanding of what it is that they're trying to say to you. And that's actually a technique that one uses in selling all the time, particularly if you understand. I think that for us, we put a lot of energy into understanding the position of the buyer when it comes to selling a television program. What's their position in the organization? Who do they have to sell to in order to get approval to get this thing to go ahead? It's people. Too many people are selling, thinking that it's all about them, and it's actually all about the person who's buying that you've got to worry about.
That's so true, and it's most true in job interviews. I mean, people think, I explain to people in one of my books that a job is a problem to be solved. And when you go into the interview, you've got to present yourself as a solution to the problem, not what's in it for me. And you're saying the same.
Absolutely.
In this different area.
This idea I have for you, James, as a television program is just what you need to solve all your problems.
Yeah, I'm sold, Steve. I can see why this has worked out so well for you. I've so enjoyed talking to you, and I wish you continued success. Can't wait to see who wins Traitors on Thursday, and congratulations again on your Emmy, which was for Traitors in America. I asked two questions at the end of every one of my podcast conversations, which I'm going to ask you. The first question, because here at Reed we love Mondays, is what gets you up, Stephen, on a Monday morning?
My trainer.
Your trainer. Very good.
I have to be up for him because I see him on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And then I don't know.
What time does that start?
7:30.
Right. Very good.
And then
Why do you do that?
Because I don't want to die early.
Yeah, good answer. You think that'll help? Yeah, I agree.
I do keep telling him I've read another book that says exercises.
You don't want the trainer to push you too hard.
As he makes me do another horrible thing, horrible crunch. I've just read another book that says exercise is bad for you, but he doesn't believe me.
That's not in it. It's not in his interest to believe you.
But no, I love the game. I love getting up and I love that moment when somebody says yes, they're going to buy something. I love that moment when you read the overnights, which is the numbers that come in that tell you how well a program has done, and they're bigger than you thought, and you go, oh my God, yes. I actually also like it when you go to an award ceremony and they say, and the winner is, and it's your show. There's a lot of highs, and I love the teamwork of programs being made. I mean, the magic of television is the way, you've kindly said that we've been doing a lot of programs that have entertained millions. But what's extraordinary is you can have an idea in your head, and in such a short period of time, it can be in millions of people's heads. That transference,
very powerful medium. Yeah.
That transference but it's just the fact that you don't have to build huge infrastructure, physical infrastructure to manufacture something and then sell it and get it out. It's a relatively light kind of in physical infrastructure system, and really quite quick. I mean, often it takes longer than you want it to, but the process, we could have an idea today, go and see the right buyer. We could be making it like in the next few months, and it could be on television early next year. And if it's a hit, millions and millions of people have now seen it, and it's got inside their heads, whereas before it was just in our heads. That's a very intoxicating proposition.
I can see that. And I can see why you love Mondays. So, Steve, my last question, which is from my book, 101 Interview Questions You'll Never Fear Again, is a very straightforward one. Is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
5 years. Well, I don't know. I think I will, by then, probably have stepped back a bit further. I mean, the last few years I'm very good at delegating, and I probably will have delegated that much more. Whether I'm still involved in this company in the same way in 5 years' time, I don't know. But and I have so many other interests, and I love doing other things and I'm, in 5 years' time I'll be in my early 70s. So I just don't know. It's a big question for me, because I need to try and work out what I want to do in the remaining time. You suddenly, as you get into your into your late 60s, you start suddenly realizing there isn't that much time left, and working out whether you want to do the same thing or whether you want to do other things is very much in my mind at the moment. And I think 5 years is the time that I will sort of make that decision over.
You'll probably be watching television some of the time. And
I'll definitely be watching television.
And I suspect some of the shows will have your stamp on them. But I wish you, continued success, and whatever that transitional journey, wherever it takes you. I wish you all the very best. Thanks so much for coming in to talk to me, Stephen.
Pleasure.
I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I've learned a lot about how TV is made and your thought process around it. So thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
A huge thank you to Stephen Lambert for sharing his insights into building Studio Lambert, creating the Traitors, and navigating the fast-changing world of television. I'm your host, James Reed, Chairman and CEO of Reed, a family-run recruitment and philanthropy company. If you want to learn more about Studio Lambert, Stephen, or Reed, you'll find all the links in the show notes. See you next time.